The station-wide lockdown alarm screamed through every corridor while Ambassador Thakrev stared at the security feed, his 3 hearts stuttering in sequence. A human was walking through the maximum security containment corridor with 3 Kashari war cubs clinging to her, one on each shoulder, one cradled in her arms. And she was singing. "Terminate her immediately." The Korvath military attaché's voice crackled across the emergency channel. "Those cubs have killed 17 trained soldiers in the last—" "Belay that!" Thakrev slammed his primary manipulator against the console. "There are 3 ambassadorial delegations between her and the nearest airlock." On screen, the human, Becca, her uniform tag read, "Maintenance Division," bounced slightly as she walked, and the smallest cub in her arms made a sound that xenobiologists had classified as preludes to attack frenzy. Except this time it sounded like purring. "Sir, the cubs should be sedated in maximum containment." His aide's voice trembled. "The diplomatic summit starts in 20 minutes. The Kashari delegation specifically warned us that—" "I know what they warned us." Thakrev's tertiary hands flew across the communication array. "Get me the Kashari delegation heads, now." And someone explained to me how a maintenance technician accessed a corridor that requires 3 biometric overrides and— The human stopped mid-stride, shifted the cub in her arms to a more comfortable position, and wiped its nose with her bare hand. The cub leaned into her touch. Thakrev's vision blurred at the edges. "Ambassador, we have the Kashari parents on Channel 7. They're not responding, sir. Visual shows they're frozen. Xenopsych team says it might be shock." "Shock?" Thakrev pulled up their feed. The 2 Kashari stood in their quarters like statues, their predatory eyes locked on a screen identical to his own. "Why would— Cubs are their species' most sacred." "Sir, Galactic Council representatives are demanding explanation." Another channel lit up. 16 species have activated fight-or-flight protocols. The Vryn ambassador is having a physiological crisis. 3 delegations are threatening to leave. On screen, Becca adjusted the cub on her left shoulder, a cub whose claws could puncture battle armor, and it nuzzled against her neck. She laughed, actually laughed. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star," she sang, her voice carrying through the audio feed. "How I wonder what you are." "Security Protocol Zeta." The Korvath attaché overrode the channel. "I'm authorizing lethal force. Those are apex predator juveniles. They've been in containment for 6 cycles because nothing can safely— You will do no such thing." Thakrev roared, his translator struggling with the frequency. "This is a diplomatic station under council jurisdiction. We don't even know how—" "She's approaching Junction 12, his aide whispered. "That's where the summit delegates are gathering." Thakrev watched the human turn a corner. Through another camera angle, he saw what awaited her. 47 ambassadors from 23 species, all backed against the walls of the ceremonial corridor, security personnel with weapons drawn, and one very pale human liaison who looked like she might vomit. Becca walked into that tableau of universal terror like she was strolling through a park. "Oh, hey!" She waved with a hand supporting the smallest cub. "Sorry, is this a bad time? I was trying to get these guys back to—" Well, I'm not actually sure where they go, but they were crying in the maintenance shaft behind the air recycler and— "Nobody move!" 6 different security teams shouted variations of this in 6 different languages. The cub on Becca's right shoulder made a chittering sound and batted playfully at her ear. She giggled and gently redirected its paw. "Oh no, that's my ear, buddy. You can't have that." Thakrev's aide made a sound like a malfunctioning filtration system. "Sir, cubs respond only to dominance assertion. Physical touch without establishing superiority triggers immediate attack response. It's biologically hardwired into—" "I can see what's happening," Thakrev snapped. "What I can't see is how." On screen, Becca noticed the assembled crowd for the first time. Her expression shifted from cheerful to confused. Why does everyone look like that? Is there an emergency? Should I not be here?" She glanced down at the cub in her arms. "These guys seemed really scared when I found them, so I figured someone should probably—" "Tranquilizer protocols active," a security team leader barked. 3 tranquilizer darts designed to drop a Kashari adult in 4 seconds hit the cubs simultaneously. They bounced off harmlessly. The cubs didn't even seem to notice. Becca noticed. "Hey, what the hell? You could hurt them!" She turned her body, instinctively shielding the cubs from the security team. The cubs responded by pressing closer to her, the smallest one tucking its face against her chest. Every Kashari in the station made the same sound, a keening wail that their species used to mourn the dead. "Sir," his aide's voice was barely audible, "the cubs just displayed protective response to a non-Kashari. That's never been documented. Ever." Thakrev pulled up the bio readings from the cubs' monitoring chips. Their pheromone signatures were wrong. Not attack stress, not fear response. Not even the neutral compliance signature cubs showed around their parents. The signatures read as familial bonding, as if the human were their mother. "Get me every xenobiologist on this station," Thakrev said quietly. "And someone get Admiral Kortnax on the channel. We're going to need the Kashari Supreme Command for this." On screen, Becca was checking each cub over with maternal concern, running her hands along their bodies, looking for injury from the tranquilizer impacts. The cubs leaned into her inspection, making soft sounds of contentment. "You okay, little guy? They didn't get you, did they?" "Yeah, you're okay. You're all okay." She looked up at the security team, and her expression shifted from concerned to annoyed. "What is wrong with you people? They're babies." Thakrev's communication array lit up like a supernova. 47 species demanding explanation simultaneously. He stared at the screen, watching a human maintenance worker cuddle 3 of the galaxy's most dangerous predators while scolding trained security personnel for trying to save her life. "Sir," his aide ventured, What do we do?" Thakrev didn't have an answer. 20 minutes until the summit, and absolutely no protocol for this. The sonic deterrents activated with a frequency designed to disorient Keshari neural pathways. Ambassadors from 14 species clutched their auditory organs in sympathetic pain. Becca winced. "Okay, could someone please turn that down? It's giving me a headache." The cubs blinked lazily, completely unaffected. "Impossible," breathed the Korvath attaché. "Those frequencies should trigger rage state in—" The smallest cub yawned, showing rows of teeth that could shred Duraplast, and settled more comfortably against Becca's chest. "Sir, Admiral Kortnax is online." Thakrev's aide sounded like he was announcing the end of the world. The view screen flickered. Admiral Kortnax filled it. 3 meters of apex predator evolution, scarred from 100 battles, supreme commander of the Keshari military fleet. His species didn't do diplomatic niceties. "Explain," he growled, "why a prey species is touching my delegation's cubs." Thakrev pulled up the security feed. Kortnax watched for exactly 4 seconds before his pupils dilated to hunting wide. "Those cubs have killed 53 handlers in imprinting trials." His voice dropped to subharmonic. "Trained Keshari warriors, the strongest of our youth, all dead within minutes of contact." On screen, Becca was playing peekaboo with the cub on her left shoulder. It chirped happily. "The human hasn't established dominance," Kortnax continued, his tone suggesting he was witnessing reality unravel. "She hasn't issued challenge. She hasn't demonstrated superior strength. She's treating them like babies," Thakrev finished quietly. "Keshari cubs don't respond to that. They respond to strength, to dominance, to—" Kortnax stopped. On screen, the smallest cub had grabbed Becca's finger in its mouth, a grip that should have severed the digit. Instead, it was gumming her knuckle gently. "Oh, you're teething," Becca cooed. "That's why you're so fussy, huh? Here, this probably feels better than crying in a dark maintenance shaft." She let the cub gnaw on her finger while adjusting the other 2 cubs with practiced ease. "Biometrics," Thakrev barked. "Someone give me the cubs' readings." His aide pulled them up. The numbers made no sense. Cortisol levels dropping, oxytocin spiking, pheromone signature reading as— His aide's voice cracked. "As pack-bonded familial attachment." "Run it again," Kortnax ordered. "Those readings only appear with blood parents." They ran it again. Same results. The Kashari delegation heads finally moved, stepping into view of their own camera. The female spoke first, her translator struggling with frequencies humans couldn't hear. Our cubs were in terror molt, extreme fear state. We thought the station environment had triggered it. We sedated them, placed them in containment to recover, called for extraction teams. You sedated them? Becca's voice cut through the channel, somehow having accessed the diplomatic frequency. When they were already scared? No wonder they were crying. Every being in the command center froze. Humans weren't supposed to be able to hear Kashari subharmonics. The translators shouldn't even... Ma'am, Thakrev tried. This is a secure diplomatic channel. I don't care whose channel it is. You don't sedate scared kids and leave them alone in the dark. Becca shifted all 3 cubs protectively. What kind of parents are you? 47 ambassadors waited for the Kashari delegation heads to respond with violence to such an insult. Instead, the male lowered his head, a gesture Thakrev had only seen Kashari make to superior officers. The female started, stopped, tried again. Our culture doesn't... Weakness is death. A cub showing fear is a baby having a bad day, Becca interrupted flatly. They're children. They're supposed to be scared sometimes. That's why they need... She stopped, looking down at the 3 cubs now drowsing against her warmth. That's why they need someone to make them feel safe. The silence stretched. Admiral Kortnax spoke into it, his voice carrying a note nobody had ever heard from him before. The human has accomplished what 53 of our finest warriors could not. She has bonded with unbonded cubs. He paused, without even trying. Dr. Zinthar arrived in a flurry of appendages and scanning equipment, their Quillan biology allowing for rapid multitasking that most species envied. They were the galaxy's leading expert on Kashari behavioral biology. They took one look at the security feed and their bioluminescent patches went dark. No, they said simply. This is not possible. And yet, Admiral Kortnax rumbled. Zinthar's scanning equipment deployed. Kashari cubs imprint through dominance hierarchy only. The strongest, most aggressive individual establishes control through combat superiority. The human has demonstrated no strength, no combat capability, no... On screen, Becca shifted the cub in her arms to her hip, the same way humans had carried human infants for millennia. The cub made a contented sound and wrapped its limbs around her torso. She's carrying them like prey carries offspring, Zinthar whispered. Exposed, vulnerable. Every predator instinct should trigger attack response. Should, Thakrev agreed. The Kashari cultural attaché, a grizzled veteran named Threx, pushed forward. Permission to attempt standard separation protocol. Kortnax's earplates flattened. Proceed, carefully. Threx approached Becca with textbook precision. Dominant posture, challenge pheromones, the low growl that signaled pack superior status. He reached for the smallest cub. The cub's head whipped around and it hissed. A sound of pure threat that made 3 ambassadors bolt for exits. Threx jerked back, shock widening his eyes. Did that cub just defend a non-Kashari? His translator barely managed the question. Becca pulled the cub closer. Hey, it's okay, little one. Nobody's taking you anywhere. She glared at Threx. And you need to work on your approach. You're scaring them. I'm scaring them? Threx looked at Kortnax helplessly. Sir, I executed perfect dominance protocol. Try this, Becca said, her tone the kind of patient exasperation reserved for explaining the obvious. She reached down, gently scratching behind the smallest cub's ear plate. It leaned into the touch, purring. See? You ask nicely. You don't just grab. She demonstrated again, this time with the cub on her right shoulder. Same result. Immediate relaxation, contented sounds, zero aggression. Threx tried to replicate the gesture. The cub growled at him. Of course it's not working for you, Becca said. You're still doing that aggressive stance thing. Relax your shoulders. There, no, not like that. Like you're actually happy to see them. Happy to see them? Threx repeated the words like they were in an alien language. Cubs are not for... Happiness is not... He trailed off, looking at his admiral. Courtnax's expression was unreadable. Continue analysis. Zinthar's scans completed. They studied the results for a long moment. When they spoke, their voice carried none of its usual academic certainty. The cub's biochemistry indicates they recognize the human as pack superior, but not through combat dominance. They struggled with the concept. Through comfort provision, stress reduction, the human's presence has lowered their cortisol by 78%. Their oxytocin levels are higher than we've ever recorded outside of blood-parent bonds. So she is pack superior, the Corvath attaché said, relieved. Just through different means. No, Zinthar cut him off. Pack superior implies hierarchy, implies dominance. These readings suggest something else entirely, something our models don't account for. What? Thakrev demanded. Zinthar's bioluminescence flickered uncertainly. Trust. Pure, reciprocal trust. The cubs trust her because she's not trying to dominate them. They feel safe because she's not demonstrating threat. They paused. It's completely backwards from every principle of Keshari biology. On screen, Becca was now sitting cross-legged on the floor, all three cubs piled in her lap, showing them pictures on her datapad. And this is a dog, she was saying. We have them on Earth. You'd probably like dogs. Admiral Courtnax watched this impossibility for 10 seconds. Then he opened a channel to Keshari High Command. We have a situation. Explain to me, Admiral Courtnax said, his tone dangerously quiet. How you came to possess my delegation's cubs? Becca looked up from the datapad, confusion written across her face. Possess? I don't possess them. I just found them crying in the maintenance shaft behind the air recycler. They were scared and alone, so she shrugged. Picked them up? You picked them up, Courtnax repeated slowly. Well, yeah. They were babies and they were scared. What was I supposed to do, just leave them there? The Keshari delegation heads moved forward, finally unfrozen. The female spoke, her voice carrying harmonics of distress. The cubs were in terror mold. Our cultural protocols require isolation until they recover dominance capability. To approach them in that state risks... Risks what? Becca interrupted, standing up with surprising grace despite three cubs clinging to her. Risks actually helping them. They weren't in whatever molt thing you're talking about. They were scared. There's a difference. There is no difference in Keshari biology, the male delegation head said. Fear is weakness. Weakness is death. Yeah, I got that part from the 60 times security tried to shoot them. Becca's voice hardened. But here's the thing. They're not weak. They were just in a scary situation. Big difference. She gestured at the smallest cub, now drowsing in her arms. This one had a hurt paw. See? Right there, on the rear left pad. Probably caught it on something sharp in the maintenance shaft. That's why it was crying the loudest. Every Keshari in the command center went absolutely still. You examined them for injury? Threx asked carefully. Of course I did. First thing you do when a kid's crying, check if they're hurt. Becca demonstrated, gently manipulating the cub's paw. Just a little cut. I cleaned it with sanitary solution and wrapped it. No big deal. No big deal, Zinthar echoed faintly. She provided medical care to cubs in terror molt, and they let her. Why wouldn't they let me? Becca looked genuinely confused now. I was helping. The silence that followed was absolute. Finally, the female delegation head spoke, her voice barely audible. Because no Keshari would approach a cub in distress. To acknowledge fear is to acknowledge weakness. To help would be to reinforce that weakness. Our culture demands that cubs overcome terror alone or die trying. Becca stared at her. That's the most screwed up thing I've ever heard. 47 ambassadors inhaled sharply. The delegation head didn't react with violence. Instead, she looked at her cubs, her babies. curled trustingly against a human who had done what no Kashari parent could do. "Yes," she said quietly. "Perhaps it is." Admiral Kortnax leaned forward. "The human's actions have created an impossible situation. The cubs have imprinted on her. They will not accept Kashari handlers now. By our laws, she has claimed them through superior bonding capability." "I didn't claim anybody," Becca protested. "I just didn't want them to be scared." "And in doing so," Kortnax continued, "you have demonstrated a capability we did not know existed, bonding through compassion rather than dominance, through comfort rather than conquest." He paused, studying her. "You have done what 53 warriors could not, human. You have made our cubs feel safe." Becca shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I really just need to get back to work. The air recycler's still broken. Can someone else watch them now that they're calm?" All 3 cubs made distressed sounds and clung tighter. "Apparently not," Thkrev observed. "Great," Becca muttered. "Guess I'm adopting 3 alien cubs today. This is going to be fun to explain to my supervisor." On her shoulder, the largest cub chirped happily. It had found its mother, even if she was the wrong species entirely. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 6 hours later. Ambassador Thkrev had never seen so many species represented simultaneously. "The Human Compassion Problem," read the session title. Admiral Kortnax presented first, his presence filling the chamber. "Kashari High Command has reviewed the incident. Our conclusion is as follows. Humans possess a bonding capability that supersedes biological compatibility. They can form pack bonds with species that should, by all evolutionary logic, kill them on contact." A Vryn delegate raised a crystalline appendage. "Surely this is an isolated incident." "It is not." Kortnax pulled up data streams. "Since this station became operational, humans have reported 73 instances of adopting various species young. We dismissed these as exaggerations. We were wrong." The chamber erupted in multiple languages. "Order," Thkrev called. "The Kashari delegation has proposed protocol changes." The female delegation head stepped forward. "We request human consultants for our youth development programs, specifically for cubs who fail traditional imprinting trials. We have lost thousands of young to our own cultural protocols. Perhaps," she paused, the admission clearly painful, "perhaps there is another way." "Seconded," came a voice from the Quillen section. "Our own young have shown remarkable development improvements with human caretakers." "Thirded," added a Vexnari representative, "though we're not entirely certain if this is beneficial or terrifying." Thkrev pulled up the current station status. "For the record, the human in question, Becca of Maintenance Division, has filed exactly one formal request: permission to bring the cubs to work because, and I quote, they get cranky if I leave them alone, and honestly, they're pretty good at holding flashlights." Several delegates made sounds that translators interpreted as laughter. "The cubs are currently in Bay 7, Thkrev continued, "where Becca is repairing the air recycler. Security reports that the cubs are indeed holding flashlights and passing her tools and apparently learning basic maintenance procedures." Zinthar added, "The cubs' cognitive development in 6 hours has exceeded 3 months of standard Kashari education protocols. They're problem-solving, communicating, and demonstrating cooperation rather than competition. It's unprecedented. Because she's teaching them," the Kashari male said quietly. "Not dominating them. Not forcing them, teaching, as if they were," he struggled with the word, "as if they were inherently valuable, rather than needing to prove their worth through combat." The chamber fell silent. "Motion to establish human integration protocols for impossible bonding scenarios," Thkrev said formally. "All in favor." The vote was unanimous. In Bay 7, Becca tightened the final coupling on the air recycler, completely unaware of the galactic-level policy changes happening because of her. "Okay, little guy, point the light up here. Yeah, perfect." She worked the wrench while the smallest cub held the flashlight steady, its injured paw carefully wrapped. "See? You're a natural helper, the cub chirped proudly. All right, that should do it. Becca wiped her hands on her coveralls. Air recyclers fixed. Only took... She checked her chrono. 6 hours longer than usual because someone kept trying to eat my tools. All 3 cubs looked incredibly innocent. Uh-huh, sure. She gathered them up, one on each shoulder, one in her arms. Come on, troublemakers. Let's go find you guys some dinner, and then maybe someone can explain to me what the big deal was about all this. She walked down the corridor, humming the same nursery rhyme. Behind her, the galaxy quietly restructured its understanding of what was possible. But Becca had an air recycler in Bay 12 that needed attention, and 3 cubs who were surprisingly good at passing her the right-sized wrench. Just another Tuesday. Really? 3 weeks after what the Galactic news networks had dubbed the impossible bonding incident, Ambassador Thakrev found himself in his office with a stack of formal requests that had grown from curiosity to desperation. 17 species wanted human child care consultants. 23 wanted behavioral specialists to study human bonding methods. 41 wanted Becca specifically, as if one human maintenance technician could somehow solve millennia of cultural problems across half the known galaxy. Sir, the Keshari delegation heads are here for their scheduled meeting, his aide announced. The 2 Keshari entered with their cubs, now significantly calmer, healthier, and more socially developed than any cubs in recent memory. They also entered without Becca, which was notable. She's in Bay 12, the female explained before Thakrev could ask, teaching them about electrical systems. They're fascinated by circuits. 3-week-old cubs are fascinated by circuits, Thakrev said flatly. Our educational specialists estimate their cognitive development is 4 months ahead of normal progression. The male's earplates flicked with something that might have been pride or confusion or both. They're also demonstrating cooperation skills we've never seen in cubs this age. Yesterday they worked together to solve a puzzle that typically defeats cubs twice their age. Because Becca taught them that working together gets better results than fighting each other, the female added. A concept that is... She paused, searching for words. Revolutionary in Keshari education. Thakrev pulled up the reports he'd been compiling. The Council has received 14 formal studies in the past week analyzing human bonding capabilities. The consensus is terrifying. How so? The male asked. Because humans don't appear to have an off switch. Thakrev displayed the data. In the past 3 weeks, humans on this station have bonded with 6 Quillan juveniles who were considered antisocial, 3 Vryn spawn who were failing social integration, 2 Korvath younglings with attachment disorders, and 1 Vexnari child who hadn't spoken in 4 months. That child is now won't stop talking, primarily about something called dinosaurs that the human Diego taught them about. The Keshari delegation heads exchanged glances. Your point? The female asked carefully. My point is that humans seem to instinctively adopt anything they perceive as young and in need of care. It doesn't matter if the species is predator or prey, compatible or incompatible, dangerous or benign. If it's a child and it needs help, humans simply... Thakrev gestured helplessly. Help. And this is a problem? The male asked. It's not a problem. It's a paradigm shift. Thakrev pulled up another file. Keshari High Command has requested a complete overhaul of your youth development programs. The Quillan Assembly is restructuring their social integration protocols. 6 species are rewriting educational standards, and all of it traces back to one human who picked up 3 scared cubs because she couldn't walk past crying children. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Thakrev opened it and immediately regretted having eyes. Admiral Kortnax has submitted a formal proposal to establish a human compassion corps. Humans specifically trained to work with cubs who fail traditional imprinting. He's calling it the most significant military innovation in Keshari history. It is, the female said quietly. We've lost thousands of cubs to our own protocols. Young ones who felt fear and were abandoned for it, who showed weakness and were considered unfit for survival. Your human saved 3 cubs we would have let die rather than acknowledge they needed comfort instead of combat training. The weight of that admission settled over the office. The cubs ask for her when she's not present, the male added. They've learned 37 human words. They sing the songs she taught them, and yesterday, when our youngest injured his paw again, he came to us for help instead of hiding the weakness. Because Becca taught him that being hurt isn't shameful, it's just something that happens, and that's what parents are for. Thakrev's tertiary hands trembled slightly. She taught your cubs to trust you. Yes. The female's voice carried harmonics Thakrev had never heard from a Kashari. She gave us back our children, not as warriors, as children. Another message arrived. Then another. The requests were accelerating. What do we do? Thakrev asked. We can't possibly meet all these requests. We have 47 humans on this station, and they all have actual jobs that keep this facility operational. Have you asked them? The male suggested. Thakrev pulled up the internal communication logs. What he found made him laugh. A short, startled bark of sound. Becca had already created a file titled Guide to Not Being Weird About Kids that she'd distributed to the Kashari delegation. It contained such profound wisdom as, if they're scared, comfort them. If they're hurt, help them. If they're crying, find out why instead of just making them stop. This is not complicated. Diego from engineering had written a 16-page document on creative play for Vrin's spawn. Another human named Jordan had somehow established a weekly story time that now included juveniles from 9 different species. They're already doing it, Thakrev said quietly. Nobody asked them to. Nobody authorized it. They're just helping. Because that's what humans do, the female said. They see a need, and they fill it. They see fear, and they provide comfort. They see a child, and they can't help but care. She paused. Our species has spent millennia believing that strength comes from isolation, from overcoming fear alone, from dominance and conquest. We were wrong. Strength also comes from knowing someone will catch you when you fall. A new message arrived. This one from Becca herself. Hey boss, the cubs are asking if they can help with the waste recycler tomorrow. I said yes. Hope that's cool. Also, do we have smaller tool sets? Their hands are tiny, but they're super careful. Thakrev stared at the message. Then at the reports. Then at the 2 Keshari parents who were learning to be parents instead of warriors. The council meets in 1 hour to discuss long-term implementation of human integration protocols, he said finally. Would you like to present your cubs as evidence of effectiveness? The female's earplates lifted. A Keshari smile. They'd love that. They've been practicing their speech. Becca taught them to introduce themselves politely. Of course she did, Thakrev thought. He filed his report to the council with a single conclusion. Humans possess the capability to bond across all species barriers through nothing more than instinctive compassion. Recommend immediate integration into youth development programs across member species. Also recommend increasing station coffee supplies, as humans apparently require it to function. Further study needed. In Bay 12, Becca was teaching 3 Kashari cubs about electrical safety while they passed her tools and asked endless questions about Earth animals. Just another day's work. The galaxy would adjust accordingly,